What's up, everybody? What's good? My name is EK and welcome back to What's Good English. It's another Tuesday, which means it's another Storytime Tuesday episode with another English listening exercise. Today's story is from a book that I love called Norse Mythology, and like the title, it's a collection of different short stories and myths based off of Loki, Odin, Thor, and the gods of Asgard. It's by the author Neil Gaiman, who created the hit series Lucifer, also well known for American Gods, Coraline, and many other titles. Really great author. You should definitely check out his work. I'll probably be telling you a few different stories from that book on this channel, but with my own dialogue to get you a better sense of how we say certain slang words or common phrases in English. Like always, I'm going to go ahead and put up a title card that's going to go ahead and show you all the different words and phrases I'll be using throughout this story. So you can freeze frame it, you can take a screen capture, whatever. Always come back and give it another listen to make sure that you understand everything or see if you can guess the meaning behind those things. As always, leave me a comment if you want something further explained or revisited in a different episode where I review grammar or phrases or whatever the like. Anyways, let's get started. The name of this story is Thor's Journey into the Land of the Gods, and it opens with Thialdi and his sister Aruxpa. They were no strangers to the weird, crazy, kooky forest that they grew up in, and got into all kinds of trouble. Luckily for Thialdi, the kid could run like the wind. Seriously, he would just be booking it through the forest, running faster than deer, running faster than a startled rabbit, running faster than birds in flight. You name it, the kid could beat it in a race. Swear to God. Anyways, because they were, like I said, no strangers to weird, crazy occurrences, it didn't surprise them when two gods happened upon their family's house one day looking for a place to stay for the night. So even though it wouldn't necessarily have surprised them that two Asgardians showed up out of nowhere on their doorstep, in fact, that wouldn't be out of the ordinary. It would have been pretty much par for the course considering the forest they all lived in. They weren't accustomed to having to deal with larger-than-life figures like two gods of Asgard. So they had to explain, Thor, Loki, oh my god, I can't believe you guys is here, but we're not built for this. We don't have supplies, dude. Like, we only have the vegetables that we've been storing to get ourselves through the winter. We can't throw you guys a feast that's going to be appropriate for two gods. Now, when Thor traveled, he always brought his two oxen with him, pulling his cart. So when the family told him that all they had were the vegetables, he looked at the oxen and he looked back at the family and he said, "Put the vegetables in the pot. We will have an appropriate feast for the gods." You like my Thor voice? And he took the oxen and he slaughtered them right there, to the shock and horror of the family. They're like, oh my god, I can't believe this dude just killed his own oxen. What is going on? And he took the skins from the oxen and he laid those on the ground. And he told them, "You may eat the oxen. I will have one. You may share the other. But put the bones from the oxen on the skin, and do not, under any circumstances, break those bones." Now, before this happened, Thialdi and Loki retreated to a secret corner, and Loki basically was like, "Hey, kid, come here, come here. Now, you see how Thor is super swole? If you want to get like that and be able to just move mountains and throw and control the thunder and be super strong like he is, what you have to do is you have to eat that marrow from those bones. Thor is that strong because he saves all the marrow for himself. I can't even get just a itty-bitty smidgen of that marrow. But if you are crafty enough, you can be just as strong as he is." So while everyone feasted, Thialdi could not get what Loki told him out of his mind. He already had the speed of a god pretty much, but he thought, man, what if I had the strength of Thor, or just a itty-bitty bit of that strength? I could be super fast and super strong, and there's no limit to what I could do. So while Thor was distracted, he broke apart one of the bones, sucked all the marrow out of it, put it onto the skins, and then hid it under some other bones. After the feast, they all went to bed and rose the next morning. And when they rose, Thor walked over to where the oxen carcasses were, and he took out Mjolnir's hammer and he thrust it into the air and said, "Rise!" And the oxen came back to life, once again shocking the family. What is an Asgardian? These people have control over life and death itself, over the animals. Oh my god, I cannot believe this is happening in front of my eyes. And one of the oxen oxen just stretched its legs as it walked around full of life again, as if it had just not been eaten the day prior, and the other one doing the same, but all of a sudden limping and wincing in pain. And Thor realized that one of its back legs was broken, and he turned to the family and he said, "Which one of you hath broken one of those bones after I gave you such a wonderful feast last night? There shall be punishment." Thjaldi and Aruxpa's father offered up himself to be punished by Thor. "I'm so sorry, Thor. I don't know what happened. It was probably me. It was probably my fault. I must have done something wrong." And Thjaldi came forward and said, "No, it was I. I wanted to be just as strong as you, so I ate some of the bone marrow." And they had a little bit of a discussion, and finally Thjaldi said, I shall be one of your servant. I will be your bondsman for whatever term that you see fit. And his sister said, "Well, if he's going to be your servant, then we are a package deal. I'm coming with him too." And after some delay, they decided, fine, cool, you know what? Awesome. You, Aruxpa, stay here and nurse my goat back to life, and Thjaldi, you're gonna come with us. We're headed to the land of the giants. Fortunately, Thjaldi was super fast because it was quite hard keeping up with two Asgardians. They didn't seem to tire that much, and they were giant figures, so he had to run to keep up with their normal walking pace. And it was pretty cold traveling through that forest, so they were looking for a place to lodge for the night when they happened across what looked to be some sort of small house with no windows, oddly enough. And Loki said, "Hey, we can stay here. It's nice and warm. We'll eat. It'll be cool." So they all went into this little house that had no windows, and they began eating. And as they tried to lay down to sleep, it was as if there was an earthquake that had started, and there was a loud rumbling, and they just could not figure out where that sound was. Somehow both Loki and Thjaldi were able to fall asleep, but Thor just could not get to sleep with all that rumbling and that earth shaking, so he went out in the wee hours of the morning once light finally started to trickle back in, and he came across the biggest figure he had ever seen in his life. When he saw this huge giant of what he thought was a giant, he realized exactly where the source of the earthquake and the rumbling sound was. It was the snoring from this giant, and the giant began to rouse, and Thor grabbed Mjolnir, and he took his belt of strength, and he tightened it to double his strength, ready for a fight. But the giant looked upon Thor and said, "Oh, are you traveling through here too? Well, I'm on my way north. Perhaps we can travel together. I just seem to have misplaced my glove." And he looked around for it and said, "Oh, it looks like it's over here." And he picked up this giant glove, which happened to be the thing that they were sleeping in last night, this house with no windows. And as he picked it up, both Loki and Thjaldi came tumbling out of the house and falling onto the ground, and they looked up to see this giant, huge figure like, "Oh my God, is this what a giant is?" Thjaldi's super surprised. He was like, "Dude, y'all are big to me. This dude is like big, big." The giant introduced himself to the three. He said, "My name's Skrymir. It means huge giant. Now, it's just a joke because I'm such a small little guy, but they like to make fun of me back where I'm from. But yes, if you think I'm big, I'm just a little shrimp." Anyways, they all decided to travel together, and the giant looked down upon them and said, "Oh, you know what? I see you guys are carrying that heavy bag. Just put it in here with my sack. It weighs nothing to me. And when you guys get ready to eat, we'll all stop and you can take your provisions out and eat, and I will make sure the bag is nice and tightened with these laces so that you guys won't lose your food." So they all began to travel together, and finally, at the end of the day, they were super tired, so Thjaldi and Thor and Loki and the giant went ahead and chose a spot to sleep for the night. And the giant Skrymir said, "You know what? I'm not really hungry. I'm cool. I'm just gonna go ahead and lay down over there. Your provisions are in that bag over there. Just untie it and you'll be fine." So Thjaldi, Loki, and Thor went and they tried to get into that bag. Thjaldi was first, and he was trying to undo those laces, and they just would not budge. And he was like, "Guys, I can't do it. I don't know. It's like they're made out of iron." And Thor looks at Thjaldi and he goes, "Well, I can bend iron." So he climbs on top of the giant's bag, and he tries to undo the laces with absolutely no success. He's just like, "What is this? What witchery?" So the three of them pretty hungry, just decide, you know what, it's probably not going to work out. And Loki and Thialdi manage to get to sleep, but Thor is super hungry and he just can't manage it. So he looks over at the sleeping giant Screamer and he takes his hammer and he's like, all right, I just got to wake this dude up and he's going to undo the bag and then we can eat. And he hits him on his head and the giant slowly opens his eyes and he's like, oh, whew. I think like a leaf or something like that must have fell on my head. Oh, hey, Thor, what you doing? Ah, anyway, man, y'all should get back to sleep. I'm about to go back to sleep. And he just instantly goes back to sleep. And Thor's like, how is this? I hit you with, like, dude, this always works. What is going on? So Thor just tries to get back to sleep again, but it's just not working. And a few hours later, he's like, oh, I gotta get in that bag. I gotta get that food. I can't. No, I need that food. So he goes back over to where Sleeping Screamer is, and he looks down at Mjolnir, and he's like, all right, I'll just hit him a little bit harder, and we're good. And whack! Right in the face again. And once again, slowly but surely, Screamer opens his eyes, and he's, whoo! I think like must have been an acorn or something like that, like an acorn from the tree, just like right in the, oh, Thor, like, dude, what you doing here again, man? It's like super duper late, man. You should probably get some sleep, man. We still got a little bit more traveling to go. And he just instantly goes right back to sleep. And Thor's like, what, dude? How is, anyways, Thor goes and tries to get sleep again, but he's just super duper hangry at this point. Cannot think of anything else but getting into that bag to get a little bit of sustenance before they start their journey again. So one more time, he goes back to Screamer while he's sleeping and he tightens the belt of strength all the way and he hits the giant whack as hard as he possibly can. And Screamer just opens both eyes and he's like, oh man, it's like a bird's nest or something, man. Just, I chose the wrong tree to sleep under, dude. Oh. Anyway, I'll probably get like another hour or two worth of sleep or something like that before we set off for tomorrow. So anyway, you should get some sleep, Thor, man. Whew, so tired. And he goes back to sleep, and Thor just like, what is this stupid giant? And could not possibly get to sleep, so he just sat there just super salty for the rest of the few hours that were left in the night. And finally, they wake up and Screamer just undoes the laces like they're nothing and gives the provision bag back to the three of them and says, okay, so you guys said you're going to Utgard, right? It's going to be up a little bit that way. I am going to go ahead and go on my own separate way right now, but thanks for hanging out. Peace. So they set off on their journey anew, and after about an hour, they saw the castle of Utgard, and they were like, oh, dude, we are there. It's right there. We'll be there in no time. But after hours and hours, the castle just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and they were just appearing to be no closer to it until finally, almost at the end of the day once again, they made it to the castle, they scaled the gate, they snuck inside, and they found who looked to be the ruler. He came and introduced himself and said, oh, it looks like we have gods of Asgard coming to visit us. My name is Loki. Oh, Loki, I knew your mother. And Loki's like, oh, really? Cool. And he looked over and he saw Thialdi and he was like, oh, you there, boy, what is your name? I don't know who you are. And Thialdi introduces himself like, oh, I'm Thialdi of the forest. And Loki looks over at Thor and he goes, ah, and we have Thor, the god of thunder. Well, we will have a much merriment at our feast tonight. But first, we ask this of all of our visitors. You must do something. Like, what is it that you can do? Can you do anything special? Can you put on a little show for us? And Loki and Thialdi and Thor look at each other and they say, okay, yeah, we all have some sort of talents. And Loki looks at Loki and he says, okay, that's great. Loki, what can you do? And Loki stops and thinks for a minute and he says, I can eat pretty fast. I can eat faster than anyone that's ever challenged me to an eating contest. So upon hearing Loki say that, Loki said, okay then, we shall have an eating contest. And he claps his hands and minutes later they walk into another room and just a completely ridiculous feast is laid out in front of them. Two massive tables full of different types of roasted meats and vegetables, and anything that you can find under the sun that you can possibly eat is right there, ready to be eaten, ready for this contest. And Loki looks to Loki and says, okay, now your competition is going to be Logi. I know, interesting name. Anyways, let's see who's faster. And they both look at each other, Loki and Logi, and Loki looks to both of them and he says, go. And Loki just starts going at it, just rah, 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 just clearing bones of food and flesh and meat and vegetables and plates, throwing everything back. And he doesn't even look over to see what's happening on Logi's side. And then after a couple of minutes, Loki says, all right, that's enough, stop. After Loki yells stop, everyone looks over and Logi and Loki are in the exact same position on the tables, and no one can believe what they have just witnessed. They're like, homie, I ain't never seen anybody eat anything like that. That is insane. And both of them are in the same position. That is ridiculous. And Loki looks over at both of the tables and he declares Loki the winner. And Loki's like, dude, how is this possible? We're at the exact same spot. And Loki turns to Loki and says, yes, you are both in the exact same position. And I just want to say, I've never seen anybody eat like you. But look over here. Loki not only ate all of the food and flesh that were on the bones like you did, but he also ate the bones, and he ate the bowls, and he ate the cups, and he even ate the table. So he's eaten, like, I don't know, twice as much as you have. You just ate what was on the table. And Loki looks over and is like, fair point, fair point. All right, cool. You got me. Whatever. Then Loki looks over to Thialdi and he says, all right, boy, what can you do? And Thialdi looks to Loki and he says, I can run. So Loki looks back at him and he says, all right, then we shall have a race. They walk outside of the castle and there's a racing track for them to go ahead and have a race on. And Loki looks down to Thialdi and he says, okay, now it would be super duper unfair if I had one of the giants race against you because, you know, you can't really keep the pace of one of us giants. So I'll have one of our children race against you. And just completely out of nowhere, one of the children just shows up. And he says, okay, now you will race against Huyi. Thialdi looks over at Huyi and he's like, this is like the scrawniest kid I've ever seen, and he's a giant. Huyi was a little bit taller, but he was just frail, just all skin and bones. And he was like, okay, well, this is supposed to be fair, so maybe it's fair. Maybe Loki knows something, I don't know. He had just seen what happened to Loki, so he was like, okay, well, there might be a little bit something at play here. And they both go into the racing track, and Loki calls go, and Thialdi just starts booking just as normal, as fast as he can. And he doesn't even look over to see what's happening on the other side, but then when he looks up to see where the finish line is, he notices that Huyi is already there, and he's just out of breath, huffing and puffing like, what is, nobody's ever beat me at a race before. What is going on? I can't believe this. And Huyi's not even out of breath. He's just standing there like, all right, race is over. And Thialdi's like, okay, hold on. I can do it. I can run much faster. I can run faster than that. You gotta give me another shot. And Loki ponders it and he says, all right, you know what, kid? I like it. I'll go ahead and give you another shot. So they both go back to the same starting point. And this time, Thialdi is super determined. He's like, all right, I'm going to beat this guy. I'm going to beat this guy. And they both take their starting positions, and Loki calls go. And once again, he is off to the races, Thialdi. He's just going for it. And once again, he looks up and bam, Huyi's like instantly there. And he's like, what? How is this? Where did he? I didn't even, he was, what's going on? And super just panting out of breath again, like, no, you got to give me one more shot. One more shot, I can do it. I promise you I can do it. Just one more shot. Just give me that one more shot. Come on, let me get it. And Loki goes, all right, cool. I'll go ahead and give you that one more opportunity. And this time, Thialdi just tries to collect all of his thoughts, and he looks over at Huyi, and as if Huyi is saying something in his mind, he hears, "This time you shall see me run." And he didn't know exactly what was going on there, but he was like, nah, put it out of your mind, out of your mind. So they take off again when Loki calls go, and this time Thialdi just runs as fast as he can possibly run, faster than he has ever run in his life, as if he is the only person in the world right now, faster than swimming sharks, than flying birds, faster than himself, and nobody has ever run as fast as Thialdi, including Thialdi, and no one has ever ran that fast again in the history of the world. And just like the first two times, he looks up and Huyi is already at the finish line, and he's just, "I can't believe that happened. How in the world? Oh my god!" And Loki is like, enough, enough, enough. So after the last race, Loki turns to Thor and he says, "All right, well, perhaps those two failures will be made up for in full by the performance of the mighty Thor, the god of thunder. Surely you, Thor, can impress us. What can you do?" And Thor looks to Loki, and he looks to Loki, and he looks to Thialdi, and he stops and he thinks for a second, and he turns back and says, "I can drink." So Loki looks at Thor and says, "Fine, we shall drink." And they go into the main hall, and Loki calls for the special horn, and they come out with the longest drinking horn that Thor has ever seen in its life. It had runes and spells and all kinds of things engraved upon the edges. And Loki gives it to Thor, and he says, "Now, before you drink, I just want you to know that the mightiest and strongest of all of us giants normally finishes everything in this horn in one gulp. But I will admit to you that occasionally some of us need to have two drinks to finish whatever's in the horn. But you, the mighty Thor, will surely finish it in one drink, so we won't even have to worry about that. And just know that no one has ever had to have three drinks from the horn to finish what's in there. So you know what's going to happen, right?" Thor takes the horn and he just drinks and drinks and drinks for a super duper long time. And Thialdi and Loki just stare on in excitement like, "Oh my god, he's going to do it." And as Thor puts the horn down, he looks and he sees so much more mead left in the horn. He's like, "What is that?" And Loki's like, "Well, maybe you're not as strong as we thought you were, but you're not a giant. You're not one of us. Maybe there's some sort of physical difference or some sort of genetic thing between giants and Asgardians. So go ahead, take a second drink. Surely you'll finish it on the second drink, I assure you." And the meat tasted a little bit salty, so Thor thought, "Oh, okay, I will just try to put the flavor of it out of my mind, and I'll get through it. So he picks up the horn and he just drinks it again, even longer this time, and he puts the horn down, and he's like, all right, that's gotta be it. And he looks down, and like, there's still just like a thumb's worth less of mead left in that horn, and he's like, "What? How is there still so much mead left? Like, this has got to be some sort of trick." And Loki's like, dude, like, nobody has ever in the history of people drinking out of this horn in this castle ever had to have three drinks. But I mean, it's got to be some sort of physiological thing or something, I don't know. So go ahead, take a third drink. Let's see what happens. So Thor, once again, drinks from the horn, and he just drinks an even longer time, like a god is supposed to drink. Just keeps on gulping and gulping more and more mead from the horn, and he puts it down, and he was like, "All right, that is it." But he looks down, and once again there's just like so much more mead left in the horn. It's only gone down like another knuckles worth of distance, and he's like, no, that is enough. I'm not drinking from this stupid thing no more. I don't know what you're doing, but no. What else can I do? How can I possibly prove that I am the mighty Thor? And Loki turns to him and he goes, all right, well, let's do this. Can you lift a cat? And Thor's like, "What? can I lift a cat? A cat, just a cat. And Utgarda looks like, yeah, a cat. Just like a lot of the giant children, they choose to try to prove their strength by lifting my cat. It's sort of like a rite of passage for all the children here. So, we'll go ahead and scale it down a little bit, and we'll see if you can lift this cat. And Thor's like, surely there must be another way that I can prove my strength other than lifting some random house cat. And Utgarda Loki goes, oh, well, my cat's a little bit different. Dude, we're giants, so, it's going to be like a giant cat. So they go to his room, and surely enough, the cat is a pretty big cat. It's a house cat, but it's like the size of a lion. It's the exact same size as Thor almost. And Thor walks over and he gets in like a good wrestling position, and he begins to lift the cat up, or it tries to, but the cat just struggles and it wriggles and it does everything it can to fight against them, and Thor's just and the cat just will not budge. And then finally one of its paws begins to come up off of the floor, and in the distance, far away in the distance, Thjaldi and Loki could hear it, like the sound of like mountains crumbling or something like that. It was just a kind of like a earthquake sound in the far distance, and they were like, what is going on? And Utgarda Loki goes, that's enough. Man, dude, you can't drink from the horn, man. You can't lift the cat like all the kids. Like, dude, I'm not lying. Like, every single kid in this castle has lifted that cat to show that they are truly at the strength of a giant. But like you, and Thor's like, what trickery is this? Lifting some cat, that's not a fair way to prove my strength. I am the mighty Thor. Have me, I will wrestle any one of these giants that are here. And Utgarda Loki replies, like, dude, like, you can't lift the cat that the giant children, like, lift every single time that they want to show how strong they are. I can't have you wrestling one of our giants, dude. I can't be responsible for the death of an Asgardian like yourself, dude. That's gonna cause a war. I'll tell you what. My stepmom, she was a night nurse. She's like accustomed to, playing with children. You can wrestle her. You can wrestle her. And, if you do good there, then I'll let you wrestle like one of the other giants that I think won't kill you. Like, surely that'll do it. And Thor, just super salty at this point, after being insulted, is like, fine. Where's this night nurse of yours? This mother, this person who raised you when you were a kid, who fights these children. I shall wrestle her, and when I prove my strength after beating her, I shall wrestle one of your giants to show how powerful I truly am. So, this super old, frail woman with just a few strands of gray hair on her head and super duper skinny and slim and wrinkly skin, but about the same height as Thor, appears. And Utgarda Loki turns and says, Thor, this is your opponent. And Thor's like, you cannot be serious. I'm going to kill this woman. And Utgarda Loki reassures him, no. She does this all the time, dude. She's good. It's sort of like another rite of passage thing. Just like, you'll get it. So Thor walks up and they begin wrestling. He puts his arms around her and he tries to push her, and he pulls and does anything he can, but she just will not budge. And she's just like not even trying to do anything. She's just standing there, and he's and she's just not moving at all. And finally, she gently takes her hand and she just touches one of his legs just above the knee, and it's as if all of the strength that is in Thor's leg vanishes, and slowly he starts to go towards the ground. And as soon as his knee touches the ground, Utgarda Loki says, that is enough. We are so disappointed with the performance of the three of you this night. But it is very late, and I can't just send you out of our castle for disappointing us, so you may go ahead and eat with us and join our banquet, and tomorrow you guys can leave. So all three of them, feeling super sorry for themselves, have a little pity party at this little banquet that they're having, and they do admit that the food is good. The food tasted better to Loki, it tasted great to Thjaldi, and the mead that they were drinking did indeed taste a lot better than whatever was in that horn, is what Thor was thinking. But all of them were just feeling super sorry for themselves, like they were just a group of nobodies, and just did not know what they were going to do with their lives once they left that castle the next morning. So Loki tells them that he'll accompany them outside of the castle, and they're all walking together, and as soon as Thor and Thialdi and Loki pass the gate of the castle, Loki stops them and says, "Oh, by the way, guys, I gotta confess something. I tricked you guys." And the three of them turn around and they're like, "What?" And Loki says, "Yeah, you guys remember Thialdi from like 2 nights ago?" And they're like, "Yeah, I do." He's like, "Yeah, that was me." And they're like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, put on a little magical disguise so that you guys wouldn't know it was me, because, I kind of wanted to check you guys out to see who was coming here to the castle. And, first of all, I just want to say, if I had known then what I know now, I would never have invited you and let you into my castle. For starters, I went ahead and I put a mountain in between my face and your hammer, Thor, because I knew that just one blow from that stupid thing would kill me. So, you see that mountain like way over there in the distance? And everyone looks over and they see this mountain that's got these huge valleys, deeper and deeper and deeper. And Thor looks over there and he looks back, and Loki says, "Yeah, you see those valleys? That huge deep valley over there, and the one there, and like the biggest one like right over there. You see all that? Like, dude, that was you. Those were your hammer strikes. Like, any single one of them would have killed me if I had not done that illusion." And then he looks to Loki and he says, "Loki, you eat faster than anything I have ever seen eaten. But like, have you ever seen a forest fire before?" And Loki says, "Yes." And Loki looks back, "Have you ever seen lava just pouring through a forest before?" And Loki once again nods and said, "Yes." He goes, "That is what you were in that eating competition against. You, my friend, can eat faster than any creature I've ever seen in my life, but you cannot eat everything like a fire can. The fire consumes everything. It consumes wood, it consumes the flesh, it consumes containers, it consumes every single thing that it touches, and that is what you are racing." He looks over to Thialdi and he says, "Boy, you run faster than any giant, any person, any god, any creature, anything that exists in this world that I have ever seen or known of. But have you ever tried to race your thoughts before?" And Thialdi goes, "No." And Loki says, "Well, that's what you were racing yesterday. Like, anyone can outrun anything, but nobody can outrun their actual mind when they think something." And then Thor, pretty heated at this point, because Thor did not like to be tricked at all. He turns to Loki and he says, "Well, what was it that I did last night?" And Loki says, "Okay, well, for starters, the horn that you were drinking from, I put that other end of the horn at the deepest part of the ocean. And Thor, you drank so much that we're now going to have tides in the ocean because you lowered the level of the water in the ocean so much. It's going to have to ebb and flow every single day for the rest of eternity. Like, thank goodness you did not drink a fourth time. Otherwise, we might not even have water enough for the people to drink." And he goes, "Well, what of the cat?" It's like, "Ah, yes, the cat. I replaced the cat with Jormungandr. You couldn't perceive it, but you were actually wrestling the Midgard serpent that crawls through the center of the earth. And you did indeed manage to pick up the Midgard serpent, which no one can. And for that reason, you heard the earthquakes off in the distance, because the actual crust of the earth was being like moved around by your own strength. It was insane." And Thor nods his head and goes, "And what of the woman?" It's like, "Ah, yes, the night nurse. That was old age, and no one can beat old age. But you were able to stand against old age, and even when she touched you and tried to do her worst, you were only brought down to one knee. I had never seen anyone be able to fight against old age so well before, but you are really something. And it is for this reason that I am going to choose to protect my people from you, because there is a war coming, and the best way that I can possibly protect us from you is to make it so that you can never find us ever again. And he closed the gates to the castle, and as Thor was beginning to run towards it with his hammer because he was super PO'd about this, the castle disappeared, and they couldn't find it any longer. Loki was a little bit upset, but then he was like, you know what? That was one hell of a finesse. I appreciate that. I appreciate that because he loved a good trick. And Thjaldi, also feeling pretty proud of himself, he left with the rest of them saying, I shall tell my sister I raced against Thor. Alright, that does it for another episode of Storytime Tuesday. Thank you so very much for watching. Thank you for making it this far. I know it's a super long episode, but I really wanted to tell the entire story instead of making it into 2 or 3 different parts because it really is my favorite story from the series, and multiple episodes telling the same story didn't really seem all that fair to anyone. Anyways, please leave me a comment and let me know what you thought. Please share the video around. Please give me a like. Please subscribe to the channel. I really do want to help people understand natural English and all these weird phrases and idioms that we have. So any suggestions or comments are very welcome. Anyways, I'll be back next Tuesday with another episode, and that's it. Ciao.